want to pivot back to Anthony Edwards real quick because we were watching the conference finals and we were thinking about his draft. And I was looking at it here. Anthony Edwards, obviously, they're starting to put him as the superstar of this league. Will he be the face of the league? Time will tell. But it reminded me here because looking at his draft, I was looking at the draft odds and the draft lottery here. So I want to talk about his draft real quick because I think it's a fascinating topic. Anthony Edwards was first overall, right? Let's remember that this year was also the same year that the Warriors were removed from almost winning their third straight finals, where Steph got hurt. He was out for most of the year. Klay Thompson was out for the full season, and Draymond Green was also out for the entire season. So there's a period of point in time in an alternate universe where Anthony Edwards gets drafted by the Golden State Warriors. They had the best odds. They were 15-65. They were terrible. They had the best odds to win, but ultimately Timberwolves won, them getting the second overall pick, and then the Hornets jumping up from being the eighth best odds all the way up to number 3. So, in an alternate universe, Anthony Edwards is potentially a Golden State Warrior, which makes me wonder, had he had been a Golden State Warrior, how much would the NBA have looked different to this point?
I mean, Steph would probably have 7 rings, and I don't think that's overstating it because Anthony Edwards is a scorer that can go for 40, and he's led his team as the number 1 guy to a conference championship. And I think he would help extend Steph Curry's career. And then you wouldn't need to rely on someone like Klay Thompson now, who's pretty old, as your second scorer. And if Anthony Edwards went to the Warriors, I do think Steph would at least have 6 rings here. And it's kind of a testament to the NBA lottery here, where you have all of these things that could have been changed because the NBA has the worst way of doing the draft possible, where a lot of people are like, well, it stops teams from coasting, and it's good for the NBA because it stops teams from tanking, when it really doesn't. Because
No.
when you have a generational talent like a Wemby, when you have a generational talent, coming through the draft pipeline, you still have the narratives like tank for Wemby. All of these teams are trading away players so that they can be bad enough where they can raise their chances in the NBA draft lottery. And you definitely see teams try to lose on purpose so they have a higher chance of getting a draft pick. And people said last time we talked about the NBA draft lottery, they're like, oh, yeah, it stops teams from coasting, when it doesn't. And that's not really proven at all, because you do see teams, when they know they don't have a chance, start to trade away their players so that they can suck and get the best player possible in the draft. And then you also have situations where the NBA lottery takes away a chance for Steph Curry to have an Anthony Edwards type player to be his second best player on his team again. And then he would have basically another leg to his career, where if Steph, age 35, I believe
He's 36 now, right?
he's 36 now. So if he had Anthony Edwards on his team the last 2 years and the next 2 years after this, he would definitely be competing for NBA finals, and he would at least have 5 or 6 rings, and it would have changed the course of NBA history. And it also hurts bad teams as well. But like, the Warriors were hurt that year. Steph was out, Klay was out, Draymond was out, and they still need another star to go with Steph Curry. And if they could have gotten Anthony Edwards, because the NBA draft lottery wasn't as stupid as it was set up today, I mean, the Warriors would still be competing for NBA titles today.
They could have been a dynasty because think about it. Well, even a bigger dynasty, I should say. A perfect storm where Kevin Durant leaves, Steph Curry's out for the season, Klay Thompson's out for the season, Draymond's banged up. They are the worst team because they're running out Jonathan Kuminga and Jordan Poole. They get hurt, and then they get Anthony Edwards, and then exactly what you say. Maybe they don't win 6 or 7, but they at least win another title. There's no way they don't. But instead, this draft lottery, which you touched on it earlier, not only does it hurt a team like Golden State, who has a chance to continue their leg on this dynasty here, but also think about a team like the Pistons this year, who are god awful, absolutely terrible, 28 consecutive losses, picking 5th overall, absolutely disgraceful. But it gets better because they fall to the number 2 overall pick. So instead of Anthony Edwards, you see players like, at this time, it was James Wiseman or LaMelo Ball. and they picked James Wiseman, who is one of the biggest busts in NBA history at this point. He's at least in the conversation of the last decade, just for what we're talking about here. Could have had Anthony Edwards, but instead it's James Wiseman, has done literally nothing in the NBA, and then LaMelo Ball. Do you think, at least at nothing else, yeah, they didn't get Anthony Edwards, but if they got LaMelo Ball, would that have at least moved the needle, and maybe they win number 5?
Maybe. I don't think so, though, because LaMelo Ball has had his injury issues, and I think I don't really think he would fit with the Golden State Warriors because I don't think having another point guard would help that team. They needed another player who could be a scorer like Anthony Edwards, and they needed another player who could play defense. Not really LaMelo Ball's strong suit there. And then he's also had some issues on and off the court where he's currently being sued right now for running over someone's foot. Has not been able to stay healthy over the course of his career. So I don't think LaMelo Ball really would have been a difference maker in the Warriors winning another ring. Maybe he could have been like a Magic Johnson there for the Warriors. Not saying he would have been as good as Magic Johnson, but just a tall point guard who could also score with Steph Curry. But at the same time, I don't think LaMelo Ball is helping the Warriors win another championship.
Yeah, I don't think so either. Especially because I think that what turned them off from them was also the LeVar Ball nonsense that was still circulating, the big baller brand situation, which is ultimately why they took James Wiseman. But the point of this take is really what the NBA did to us, which is steal Anthony Edwards from Golden State, steal another 2 or 3 titles from Steph Curry, potentially being the greatest of all time. Because if he were to win 6, he would be in that conversation. So the NBA lottery, we talked about it the last several weeks about how it is the worst system in NBA history, worst system in sports history, professional organized sports. They stole Anthony Edwards on the Golden State Warriors. They stole potentially the greatest player of all time, their greatness.
Yeah, and for like to play devil's advocate here, don't you think like the Warriors were injured that year? Don't you think the Minnesota Timberwolves deserve a star? Don't you think they deserve another chance at getting back to the conference championship? They had to suffer through having Tom Thibodeau as their head coach, Jimmy Butler with the backups, beating everyone on that team and still exiting in the first round. They have to suffer through having Karl Anthony Towns there, their team trading for Rudy Gobert. Now they have Anthony Edwards. They're back in the conference championship, and they go up against the Dallas Mavericks, and they're probably going home right now, and we'll see what the future holds. They may not keep Karl Anthony Towns. His future is kind of in question, but we'll see what happens with the Timberwolves. But don't you think, I don't know, the Timberwolves deserve to have a player like Anthony Edwards with their poverty history? I mean, it had been 20 years since they'd made a conference championship.
Yeah, no, they don't actually. You know why they don't deserve it? I think when bad teams make bad decisions, they deserve to continue to be bad, right? So I look at the Timberwolves, right? They had not 1 but 2 opportunities to take Steph Curry. They drafted players like Wesley Johnson, Rick Rubio, Johnny Flynn throughout their entire history for that 20 years. So yes, do I think that suffering should inevitably end? Of course. I am a humanitarian at heart. That's why they call me Humanitarian Jameson. However, poor decisions deserve poor results. So them making those dumb decisions is ultimately why they should continue to suffer. Now, they get Anthony Edwards. They make the right decision. They take him instead of James Wiseman first overall. Great decision. Ends up working out great for them. And now their suffering is temporarily over. But do I think they deserved Anthony Edwards? Over what I just said about Golden State? No, I don't think so. I don't think a team that makes dumb decisions over 20 years and suffer and suffer and suffer deserve to get rewarded with a player like Anthony Edwards when they have continued to be stupid.